All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly training committee meeting. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:10. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at the email that Darlene had sent out. Based on some of the comments we made in our conversations, she actually broke out that instead of having that like 10-page-ish document, she broke it out into 3 different kind of more digestible pieces. So the first one we were going to try to go over today was the onboarding process. So I think the idea there, and Darlene, since you were kind of like took the lead in pulling these out together, please add if I misspeak to anything you're trying to do. The idea here is kind of what are the next steps for once we actually do have our new commissioners that join the commission. How do we get them up and running as quickly as possible? So I think the idea, we might be able to get through more than just the onboarding today, but if we can, that's great. But I think the idea is we want to start with that, then do the case review document. And then if we have, I don't think we'll have time to do all 3, but then we can do the special topics. So if anyone has questions, I know we're a small group. I would say just feel free to speak up. We don't have to raise our hands, and I will go ahead and share the onboarding page. Did anyone have a chance to look at that before we started? I know we got that today, so not everyone probably had time to look at it. Okay, not hearing anything, so I'll just jump right into it. So this is stuff that we've all already gone over, but we, as you said, we kind of tried to simplify it and make it into a kind of a more digestible piece. So kind of like when we all started as new commissioners, what were the steps we needed kind of in the order we thought that they needed to be done? In Darlene's email, she basically was suggesting that if we're all in agreement on this, we can make a proposal to the cabinet to have this presented to the full commission in one of our January meetings. I haven't heard anything about the process of the new commissioner applications. I believe it ends on Wednesday, the 13th, if I remember correctly. And I don't know, I haven't heard if we've gotten many, but hopefully we have. And then hopefully the city council can then move forward to get our 4 vacant seats filled. Yasmin, have you heard anything on that at all?
We don't know how many people are being nominated. We don't have access to that, unfortunately. But I do have access to how many people applied. I think 4 or 5 have applied, but the deadline for the application is not this Wednesday. So a lot of people might have been nominated but haven't applied yet.
Got it. So the
Please
first
still
thing,
encourage folks to be nominated.
and people, I mean, if anyone's obviously doesn't apply to us because we're already on, but if people are watching this, you can also self-nominate as well. So the first item we had there was the oath of office. Typically what we've done is we try to make it as easy as possible. So we'll have the city clerk will come to one of our meetings. If people can't go to that, they can basically just go to City Hall and do that. It's a really easy process. The other one we have here is the confidentiality requirements. This one we had, and it was done by our outside counsel, Dwayne Bennett, at some point in the future. The idea is once we have our own on-staff general counsel, that they would be able to provide that for us. And then
Brendan, I have a quick question on that. Is that I don't remember what we did here, but is that the like a specific training that was actually given and then followed up by the confidentiality requirement from SDPD that you all have to sign?
I think it was a combination of both. I think he kind of went over the kind of the high level aspects of it. The fact that we're given access to confidential information, the police department reports, arrest records, etc. It was kind of the requirement that we're maintaining that confidentiality. And then there's also the component of the NACOL code of ethics and things like that.
Right, which we haven't done. We haven't done that. So that's part of why I'm saying, is it only just signing what we need to sign for SDPD as far as the onboarding, and then is the NACOL thing something later, or should it all be in one?
I think it should all be in one, but I mean, there's multiple ways to do that. I think it kind of makes sense if we're talking about confidentiality, and then we can talk about just kind of like the code of ethics. I mean, if anyone's kind of just looked at it, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's don't share information that you're not supposed to share. It's don't take gifts. I mean, obviously, city issues. I mean, don't take gifts from people that we're going to be investigating, and when do you need to recuse yourself from a case and things like that. But I mean, it is important for us to go over all those. I mean, if it's not necessarily together with confidentiality, I think it could follow very quickly thereafter, because I do think they're kind of tied together a little bit.
And we haven't done that yet. Right? Or did we
you know
do
what?
it already?
You might be right. And I think sometimes I think, yeah, we've done it because I did it, but I, you know, probably did it years and years ago. And I just kind of think everyone's done that, but I think you're right. I don't know if we've officially gone over the code of conduct and ethics and all that from NACOL. So I will make a note and I will mention that to Gloria and the cabinet as well.
Just flagging, since the two topics require two different forms of sign-in. So one is the confidentiality form for SDPD, and the other one is the form 700 that you all also had to complete. I would recommend they're done differently just so people don't confuse and make sure that
Okay.
both are completed. Because, like, for example, we still have commissioners who have not completed form 700. And it's actually like legally required. So I would separate them and emphasize the importance and legal requirement of the 700 specifically.
I think we actually might have some of that.
Now, that's actually a third thing, right? Because the Form 700 and the NACOL training or the NACOL Code of Ethics, I mean, they kind of, they're related, but they're not the same, right?
No, so
They are
I
different.
think, yeah, they're different, but I think they're under the same topic.
Especially because the Ethics Commission for San Diego runs that. I mean, I would say I think it makes sense to kind of have that parallel with ethics. So I'm going to add.
Oh, okay. I was going to start typing in the document, but you can.
Let's put it there.
And just, I don't know if did you all have to attend the training by the Ethics Commission as well as complete the form? So do both or just the form?
There was an online thing we had to do.
Yeah.
So just the form, okay.
Yeah, but I think the video, there's like the online success factors training. But yeah, I mean, we didn't have to go in for any in-person thing.
Wait, so you did watch a video? Like
Yes. Yeah, it's a little cartoon thing. And then it would have like, 5 to 10 screens of information. And then you'd have a little quiz that would ask you questions and you have to answer the correct question before you can move forward.
And is that separate from Form 700 or is that the same?
That's separate. Yeah, that's like the kind of the ethics requirements. It's kind of like the gifts and all that kind of stuff.
Is that the one that we have to set up a separate account, right? The one I've been dealing with this past week or so. It's like a separate account that you have to set up for the ethics training.
I think they are different, but I think the one you have to set up your own form, I think, or your own account, that's for the financial disclosures piece.
Oh, yeah, I did that a long time ago on the first week or 2 weeks. But I'm talking about that ethics training that you're referring to, that you need to set up an account. It's it's a training account that is required for you to take it every 2 years or something like that for all city employees, period.
Correct.
That's the one. That's the one.
That account should already be set up for you. When they send you that link, they'll give you your username.
Yeah, but unfortunately they never did. And
okay.
I had asked for that like last week.
Got it.
and then it just did a lot of weird, had me change all my passwords, including, everything. I had to change all my passwords all over again. And but it took a while to get an account going, but that's a separate account.
Yeah, typically I think, and Yasmin, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe typically the Ethics Commission, once they realize we have new commissioners, they should set up that account for you, and then they'll send you an email that has your temporary password. And then once you get in, you can reset that password to whatever you would like.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that what happened is that what they did, they sent it to my personal email, and I didn't know. I was like looking for it in my city issued computer. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So finally, when I got a hold of somebody, they said, oh, it was sent in October, but it was to your Gmail account. And I didn't know about that. Nobody said anything at the meetings, at the business meetings or anything. And it would have been nice to have somebody would have said that, like, hey, FYI, you should look at your personal email about the ethics training link. And it was there. It was there since October 9th in my, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually, Brendan, I actually have no idea what that process looks like from y'all's end. As a coordinator, I didn't have to complete the Form 700, so I don't know it. But
Lucky
what I
you.
was, yeah,
It's
what I
kind of- it's a
was going
pain.
to suggest is that we actually also name the success factors code, like ethics training by the Ethics Commission.
Okay.
And then that way, like, we know there's these different parts that require onboarding. And maybe in the meeting, like you just said, Commissioner Diaz? That was Diaz, right?
Yeah, Diaz.
Sorry.
You can call me Lupe. Just call me Lupe.
That way we actually know as staff, we have to show the commissioners that, hey, you're going to receive this email. This is what it's going to look like on your end. Here's the different pieces you need to do. And we're able to flag it. So if we're able to add that piece, that would be helpful. Are we going to add all of it under confidentiality, or did we want to split them? I wasn't sure, but
I think we can
however you
move-
all want, just if we can name the success factors piece of it, please.
Yeah, she did it right over here on the side. We have they have to do the form. Well, actually, the Form 700 is
Separate.
not through, yeah, it's not through success factors. It's the ethics training is. But we can correct that. And I think what we can also do is, because several blocks down on another page, we have the whole chunk that talks about, the ethics related stuff. But I think those are appropriate to go over pretty quickly as we get new commissioners on board. Because obviously, to your point, I mean, it is it's a legal requirement for us as commissioners to fill out that form. And I know, I haven't heard from this commission because I'm not chair, but I know when I was chair on the last commission, a lot of people don't like doing it. And I get it, because it is somewhat invasive, because you have to put, like, if you own stocks and things like that, you have any businesses that do any work with the city, you have to put all that information down.
And really quickly, one thing I can do is, since this is a lot of like staff, once we're done with this one, I can take it back and check in with Alina specifically, since she's been at the office the longest, and make sure we haven't missed anything.
Okay.
Anyway, do you like how it is now, all in one, or no?
I mean, I think Yasmin had a good point of having confidentiality as one block and ethics as another. But I think this is fine. I think maybe what we just do is, because we have ethics on like 2 or 3 pages further down, I would say we'll just move that up after the confidentiality piece. But I think we can do that later. I think we have all the bits that are there, I think, are there.
Okay.
So on the next page, I mean, this one's kind of simple. I mean, I know this is the first time we ever did it, was the distribution of laptops and then giving information on how that works. I mean, I can't think of anything else on that one that we need to really add. I know the staff might have some more suggestions based on the rollout, what they saw worked or didn't work. We might want to, maybe we can add some extra thoughts there, but I don't think we had any huge problems, but you guys would know better as staff.
I would just remove the success factors from this last point, since we included it above.
Okay. For the next one, okay.
Mhm.
Actually, Charlie, I see you making changes. I don't want to be overruling you're both doing it at the same time. So the better management system is the time tracking piece. And I know Darlene actually brought up a really good point is, again, I kind of being legacy person, I kind of just like never really thought about it, because I knew how to do it, but we probably do need to have an official system where we show people how to do that. It's not terribly complicated, but it's just important for people to get in there. And then the one thing I always like to try to tell people is, the city likes to always tell us that, this commission tends to be one of the hardest working commissions when it comes to volunteer hours, just because of the type of work we do, that I think it's really important that we make sure we put our time in. So when we do our annual report at the end of the year, we can actually give a clear and correct amount of hours that the citizens of San Diego are volunteering to put in on this effort. So it's not very complicated. I think this could be literally, a 15 to 20 minute training block. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing to do, but to Darlene's point, we haven't done that yet. So there's a lot of people that don't know that that's something we should be trying to do. The Brown Act related stuff, I know that one sometimes gets complicated for new members because there are some kind of, sometimes it sounds like arcane rules of, when you can email people and how many people. Again, right now we had that being done by our outside counsel. I think in the future, once we have our own on staff general counsel, we would probably have them doing that. I know Darlene had also put that there was a video from the League of Cities. I think it's the League of,
They brought that up at our last meeting. That's why I added it.
yeah, and I want to say, I think it's the League of Women Voters, I think also has a video
Yeah,
or a
yeah, they do.
PDF,
Yeah.
which is also pretty good. So I think there's several different things we could put in there. And then obviously our outside counsel can kind of supplement that with anything that's specific for our issues. But that one,
I think we should, or somebody, I don't know if it has to be us, but I think someone should determine what's the best, most succinct thing to educate people about the Brown Act. Because like you said, like this gets overwhelming if there's too much there.
Yeah, and I think having, Dwayne, I think did a good job because he had that PowerPoint that he shared with all of us. I think our outside counsel or our on staff counsel, once we get it, I think what probably would make sense is, to your point, a lot of the Brown Act stuff isn't really just for us. It's really for how does the city council set up their meetings? How do they do their agendas? Now, some of that carries over to us of when do we notice things? How do we deal with making sure things are on an agenda? When can we talk about things that maybe are not on agenda? Those are important to us. But I think when it comes to some of the legislative process, we are technically a legislative body, but a lot of those rules we don't need to know. I think what's most important is, the serial meetings issues. And so we're not sending, an email and we're carbon copying every commissioner. Committees like us right now, because we're ad hoc, we're not subject to the Brown Act. As practice, we've, and this can change, of course, but we've kind of barred, well, I'll say barred, that's the wrong word. We've erred on the side of being more public in our meetings than we probably are required by law to be. But we've done that because we're trying to make sure everything's transparent. So theoretically, yeah.
So, sorry to interrupt, but Lupe, let me ask you this question. You brought up this other source of getting information about the Brown Act. Did you feel like what we got was lacking, so we need something different?
No, not really. It was just to augment information. I think that lecture, that informational session that Dwayne had with us was good, but I think this video, I saw parts of it. It seems like, it just, went over some material. I can look at it again and see if it's.
Yeah, I guess I don't
redundant.
want to add it to create more of a burden for people is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Or
Yeah,
get people. So like with Brandon's point, there's all this
Mhm.
stuff about the Brown Act that doesn't apply to us. So I don't want it to be distracting
Yeah.
either.
Sure. I'll take a look at that video again and see what
Okay.
parts, if it's not too much. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we bring it up to the full commission, I think, Darlene, to your point, we can even ask, did anyone feel like they did not get enough information from that PowerPoint? I feel like, I think like Dwayne did a really good job, but I also don't know, is that just because I'm already familiar with the Brown Act that it was just a refresher for me? But I mean, if we have commissioners that are like, yeah, I'm still confused as to what I should or shouldn't do, then yeah, let's make sure we get that covered. But I think that one's pretty good for what we have, I think.
I walked away from the Brown Act training feeling like I knew it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple little quirks to it, but I mean, I think
exactly
kind of clear to like, don't CC everybody when you send out an email and, things like that. But, and also, especially now that we have our outside counsel at many of our meetings, in the past, we didn't. And so Dwayne does a very good job. If we start getting a little off course, he'll raise his hand and be like, hey, we can't talk about that, or don't do this, or, whatever. So that is why we have our attorney here, is to make sure that we're not making mistakes.
And how many people again? We can't email CC 6? Is it 6 the cutoff?
Any more than 3 is really.
Oh,
Yeah.
any more than 3. Well, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the idea is in a serial meeting, and I know we're kind of getting more into the educational side, a serial meeting, say, for example, Darlene and I sent emails back and forth, and then I then sent you, Lupe, an email about the same thing, and Darlene sent Dennis an email about the same thing. Well, we've just created a serial meeting, because instead of having one meeting, we're sending emails back and forth to everybody to discuss business, when that's the whole point of trying to make sure those are an open meeting issue. Now, again, our committee, technically, because we're ad hoc, we aren't subject to that, but we still try to make sure everything is as public as we can make it.
Okay, well, going back to the case reviews, we're in groups now and we're emailing each other sort of back and forth. Now, how does that apply with the Brown Act?
That's different, because that's essentially, the case review is not something
Right.
It has to be
okay,
public.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. Anything that's public, okay, I see. All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's like weird little quirks to it, but I mean, the idea is like a case review. If we're like talking about deliberating on how we think an allegation should be done, that's not something that would ever be open, because that would be a closed session issue
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's different. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Also, like training, technically training doesn't always have to be public, but again, we try to make as much public as we can. Yeah.
I just remembered a couple things that we would also need as staff, and this is just like details. I don't know if we necessarily need to add it, but basically photos and bios, commissioner photo and bio. And then I would recommend, I noticed this is something that folks struggled with this time. Can we also put together like a quick summary of CPP bylaws that are very relevant to like attendance, excused absences, etc. I feel like we never gave like an overview of what that looks like, because the assumption was everyone read the bylaws, but the bylaws are really long and people have trouble going over them. So maybe just creating a quick summary.
I think it's that, but also it's because the bylaws are still in the process of being adopted. So we didn't want to train everyone on what the bylaws were if they were going to change.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what the bylaws committee, how far along they are, because I know they're going to bring it back to the full commission. But yes, I think that is something that, especially for, like, to your point, attendance, I think that's a really important thing for people to be aware of.
That is on this list. The bylaws are on this list. It's just lower down.
It just comes down.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
And
the
also,
attendance-
it's coming tomorrow, by the way, to the
Oh,
meeting.
cool.
Yeah.
the attendance sheet or the attendance brief, whatever we want to call it, is real important. I had no clue that, let me see how it worked the very first meeting I was in. I couldn't make the meeting. I was sick. So I logged in over the public login, which I didn't know that was what I was doing. And that entered me into the meeting, and everybody looked up and it was like, okay, Dennis is here. And the chairman said, make a note, Dennis is here. And then we went to vote and I couldn't vote because I was signed in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Then I was told after the meeting that you're only allowed 3 absences, and I had just done one, and I knew nothing about any of that. So, I mean, it's all been corrected now, and I understand now, and et cetera, at least I think I do. But I, because of the nature of my health, from time to time, I will be, I'm not making it today, and, I regret it. I regret it.
But that's excused, Dennis. That doesn't count against you. That's excused.
Right. But at the same time, I have to call in. Now, what if I'm and I don't believe me, I don't mind this, but what if something happens? I'm in the hospital overnight. I miss that meeting. I know now, after talking with everybody, that if I call in afterwards and say, hey, I was in the hospital, I'm sorry, they will erase whatever that is. That, because I know it now, is not a problem. But for somebody that's just coming on board, it needs to be real clear. And a half page, this is what we do, memorandum or something. But it is an issue in the beginning. Once you know it, it's no big deal. But somebody coming on board, thinking that they can go to the Bahamas and come back, a month later and go, all right, let's do this, they're gonna be in trouble, so, yeah.
I think, yeah, and again, I think it's going to depend on who the leadership is of the commission as time goes on too. Because I think the intent is that obviously we are all volunteers. I think we know that work is going to come up, family commitments come up, health commitments come up, things like that. And I don't think the intent is ever to kick people off because they have, a work commitment or a family commitment or something like that.
I agree. And that, I think the rule, my first reaction to the 3 absences rule was, how punitive are you going to get? And this is a volunteer thing.
Yeah.
As you said, we are a different committee now, and those are going to be different rules put in place on it, because we're a lot more involved. I believe that 3 absence rule was put in there as the committee dwindled and trying to keep a quorum together and trying to keep that whole thing together. That's what the logic says to me.
Yeah, and I think from a historical standpoint, I think, we've had some people that, even though when we were trying to recruit new commissioners and board members, we try to be very upfront and honest about how much time goes into it. And I think we'd have people that, even though we would tell them it can be sometimes 20 to 40 hours a month, that people then realized, oh, you were serious.
Oh,
and so then they just stop showing up to meetings. Yeah.
There's no way you are prepared for this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we always tried to be honest and tell them it's like it is a huge time commitment. And again, we are looking at ways to possibly change it so there's less commitment for the volunteers. And once we have staff, it can be different. But that was kind of part of the issue, is we would have commissioners and board members that once they were sworn in, they stopped showing up to meetings. And so we needed some kind of a mechanism, if people just stopped showing up, that they could be removed for cause for not showing up to meetings. And again, I don't think the intent was ever to be, punitive in a way of like, hey, you took too many vacations, but I mean, we also do want people to, put an effort to attend commission meetings and do the commission business. But
absolutely. I absolutely believe that. I mean, if you miss 3 meetings, you're just, I don't know if you could run that hard to catch up.
Well, I think also, and I have to go back and look at it, I think if I remember right, there was a couple different rules. It was, I think, 3 consecutive meetings. Or it was like 4 or 5 meetings in a fiscal year or something like that. I can't remember exactly the verbiage, but I think the idea was, like if you miss a meeting in January and then you're there until July and then you're out for, summer because your kids are doing stuff, you miss another 2 meetings. They're like, oh, there's your 3 meetings, you're out. I mean, I don't think that was ever the intent, but again, the bylaws are still in flux. So I guess we'll find out tomorrow. I didn't even have a chance to look at the agenda yet. So
cool.
I think we already kind of went over this block here. I see Darlene's been adding to it.
Sorry.
No. This is what we wanted. So the Code of Ethics, the City of San Diego Ethics
Wait,
Training.
we didn't talk about parliamentary procedure. Did you want to?
Did I skip it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think it's because when we moved things, it maybe went to the other page, maybe.
Oh, sorry, I messed you up.
All good. So for this one, we had Doug, who as the second vice chair, per our current bylaws, the second vice chair is the parliamentarian. So Doug did give kind of a high level overview of kind of what the procedure is, how to make motions, how to do, a point of order, all that kind of stuff. I think we can build that out a little bit more, but I think it helps, especially for people who have never served on a board or a commission, kind of like letting them know about like the rules, Robert's Rules of Order, which is how the bylaws currently say we operate as a procedural guideline. And as I started going over, because I went out of order here, the block here we have about the Code of Ethics, the city's ethics training, and our Form 700, which is our financial possible conflict of interest for financials things. We have to do that, and I believe we're supposed to get that done within, is it 30 or 60 days of being appointed? Yasmin, do you remember? Oh, she might be frozen. I think it's 30 days. Then the one block we have here for the city's administrative rules, there's a lot of them. Oh, is everybody there?
I'm here. I hear you.
Okay. I saw
Yeah.
everything just went blank on mine. It's like, oh, maybe it's my computer it just died. So the administrative rules, I know there's a lot of them. It's kind of the, you know, how you use your computers, how you use the city's internet services, your email, all that kind of stuff. And again, we had that by our outside counsel. Same thing for the administrative rules and requirements. Although I think we can merge those two together, to be honest.
I don't understand how they're different. What's administrative regulations and requirements? How's that different than administrative rules?
I know the city's AR rules. I mean, that's like, I mean, everything from how you purchase office equipment or supplies. And I mean, there's a whole, how you use your P cards, things like that. We won't be using that, the staff will. But I think we can merge these together. I think anything that might be different, I think that's all the same. So yeah, why don't we just pull this?
I think, yeah, just the bottom description is more accurate than the top.
So you want to keep this one down here, that block?
I just added it to the top block.
That works.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And Darlene, since you're going in and editing, I don't want us to be going over
Yeah.
and overwriting each other. So I will let you go ahead and delete that or make any changes there.
Did, sorry.
No, I know, and
Okay.
especially we have multiple people working the same document, it sometimes gets a little complicated.
Okay, now we're good.
So this block here, I know we had some conversations about it before and kind of what the benefits are, but I think the idea here is to kind of give an overview, not specifically for San Diego, but just what the process of community oversight of law enforcement is. And I think there's a lot of information we can get from NACOL. And I think the idea was either have someone from NACOL present it, although I think on a long-term basis that may not be feasible, but we could also have, you know, I think here we had either Doug or myself just because we had that information, but I think going forward, I think that can be a staff person, whether that's, you know, our executive director, or once we have our deputy, I think any of them can probably be able to present that.
Is that like oversight 101, basically?
Yeah. And I think we can kind of go over, here's the different models like nationwide of oversight, you know, the auditor, the review, you know, all those different pieces. And then I think once we finish that, we can go to that second piece, which is specifically in San Diego, how do we do our oversight and what's our model? And then we can also kind of talk about the events that led up to the oversight model here in San Diego from the 80s. I know this one it was done by Doug. But again, I think that can be, you know, in the future, that could be staff. And I don't remember, Darlene, did you ever have a chance to reach out to Andrea if she had anything she wanted to add to this?
I thought after Yasmin said that she thought that there was this note in here that talks about women occupy Mid-City can, not just San Diegans for Justice. I thought Doug, I mean, based on the things that I've read, because I've tried to read up on the history myself, it didn't seem like anything got left out, but I don't know everything, right? So that's why I put the question in there. And it was in the original Training Academy document put together. It said San Diegans for Justice would do that presentation. And so that's why I originally added the question, because they didn't, and I didn't know if anything got missed.
Yeah,
What
and I
do
think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna suggest, what do you all think about having this more as a panel that includes a staff member as well as maybe the community perspective? Staff can focus about the model of ours, and then community can give a little bit of the history of what happened in San Diego.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And I was going to say, I think, I don't know, maybe it'll change over time, but I was going to say now it's still pretty fresh, but the implementation ordinance and the charter updates, I think now that's probably helpful. I think in, 5-10 years, I don't know if that's going to be beneficial. So I think we should leave that in for now, just because it shows, I think what's helpful there is we can basically say, here's what we used to be, and here are the new powers that we have and how we can utilize those powers. And so I think it's probably good now, but I think we may not always keep that in there.
Yeah, and just thinking through history, in 5-10 years, this commission might look different than it does now. So
Certainly, yeah. And then also part of that, we would go over the current organizational chart and our timeline. I think the implementation timeline, again, I think that's going to change over time. I think for now, I think we're going to struggle to have an accurate timeline, to be honest, because I think some things for the implementation timeline that's going to be really important are our ability to do independent investigations, our ability to make recommendations for potential discipline of officers with sustained findings. And those are going to be, my prediction is it's going to be a long process. I'm sure going to meet and confer is going to be a mess. I think that's going to be long and drawn out. I suspect the union is going to push back on a lot of things. And then after that, it's going to have to go to city council, and then they're going to have to approve all that, which I think might be a little bit easier, but that's also famous last words. So I think in the past, when we were the previous commission, we tried to have kind of a living timeline that was getting updated like usually every week with the transition committee. I know sometimes we heard from the public that they were frustrated that that timeline kept changing. So we were trying to just explain why that changes, because there's a lot of factors that are really beyond the control of us as a commission, and we're kind of dependent upon some other groups in some cases. So I think that's still an important thing, but again, I think that might go away at some point in the future. Moving on to the bylaws, I guess we're having our meeting tomorrow. I think maybe we table anything on the bylaws till we know what's going on after the meeting tomorrow, and then we can bring that back. And then
Sorry, quick question. What does an actual training on the bylaws look like? Is the assumption tomorrow that everyone has read the bylaws? And is that considered the training?
Well, I think this is not so much for our commission today. I think the idea is this is an outline for what happens for future commissioners that come down the road. So
I think it's also the training that we need that we haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
And,
But also,
would envision the training on the bylaws would be highlighting the things that are really important that we need to know, and then direct it, like kind of like you were saying earlier, Yasmin, like a one-pager synopsis of the highlights of the bylaws or something, and going over those, because everybody learns differently. Some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing, you know what I mean?
yeah, and I think
That makes sense.
we'll know more once we kind of hear what the presentation is tomorrow.
But I don't think tomorrow will necessarily count for us. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, my guess is anything we go over on the bylaws, it's going to be discussions, and then we'll probably send it back to them for probably, I'm guessing, revisions, and then they'll bring it back to us once they think it's finalized. And then as a commission, we would have to vote to approve it and then send that to city council.
Okay, I think my understanding was, because I believe there was action on the agenda. I thought tomorrow it's going to be adopted, so but maybe not.
Okay. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to look at the agenda yet, but I guess we could also, depending on how far along they are on that, we could make motions to change things on the floor and then just vote to approve them right then and potentially approve the bylaws. We will find out. But I agree with Darlene. I don't think tomorrow will count as training. I think after we get that done and it's finalized, I think we're gonna have to bring it back and then kind of do a quick training for everybody on that. The standard operating procedures, a lot of those, Dwayne is our outside counsel. He has looked at certain things like the investigative procedures, which I believe Olga is now also reviewing and trying to help work on. I believe some of these other items like intake procedures for complaints, I'm not sure where we are on that one. I know we kind of had a process, and I don't know if it's going to change that drastically, but I'm just not aware of that. Case review, I think that's going to change quite a lot once we know what we're doing. But
so does everybody need, like I remember Dwayne saying there's something like 18 procedures that this commission needs to create.
Yeah.
Or so are all of them relevant? Do all the commissioners need to know them, or some of them things that are just the cabinet needs to know, or like that? I think those kinds of details will be helpful to have in this outline.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. The charter, the implementation ordinance and the charter amendments do have a lot of things that we have to go over. I think probably everyone should know it, even if you're not part of the cabinet. But
Because that sounds like a lot of training, 18
is.
procedures.
it is. And to be honest, I mean, when we went over it and it was, we were doing the transition committee, it's like over a year ago. I mean, a lot of them is statutory. It's like the ordinance clearly says you must do this. And those are what a lot of those are, but a lot of them, it's like, we need to create a training program. Well, that's kind of what we're doing now, but I mean, there are components of that I think once we get it finished, we just have to send it to city council and have them essentially ratify it.
So
But
we
yeah,
wouldn't need to be trained on it.
I mean, and the training, I don't think necessarily has to be super lengthy. I mean, if one of the things is we need to create a training program, I mean, I don't think we have to have an hour-long training session on what that is. But I mean, I think there's other components like how do you do case reviews? I mean, that obviously I think is going to need training. When it comes to things like how do we do our policy recommendations? That, I mean, if we follow something similar to the way we did it before, it's pretty simple, but I mean, I'm not sure how it's going to be going forward, but typically, we have a policy committee that, much like we are now, we go over things, we discuss them, come up with a proposal, we take that to the full commission, and then the full commission would then vote if they want to move forward with making that recommendation. And the way it used to work is then the chair will write that memo to the police department or the mayor's office or whoever.
So I guess what I hear you saying is that it's good for everyone to be aware what the procedures are, if there's 18 or however many there are, but to actually have a training and go over the details of it will only be certain procedures.
That's kind of my thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Brendan, do you feel like, and I'm also not aware of the operating procedures, to be honest. But do you feel like maybe creating a summary or a one-pager of what the 18 would be helpful, and then the actual trainings are just focused on the things that everyone needs to know, like case review, etc.?
Yeah, and I'll have to find it, but we have that list of what the 18-ish procedures were. Let me find it and I can share that with you all.
Okay.
Because like I said, not everything in there I think is going to justify having a training session for the whole commission, but I think it's important for everyone to have access to that. And if people choose to read it, I mean, it's going to be public as well. But if people want to read it, I think it would make us all better commissioners just knowing how the commission works.
Yeah, and it might be short. I don't actually know how long these are, but just sometimes like the legal language is very jarring and hard to understand. So how do we make it more accessible to commissioners to just understand the overall picture without the legal details?
Sure. Just have like a quick, executive summary for each one. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. POBAR, everyone's favorite topic. POBAR is,
You don't want to do the training for us right now, Brandon. We just want to talk about if we want it to be a training topic that's considered part of onboarding.
Yeah, I think yes, because that dictates the laws of what we can do and the timelines in which we can do it. So for example, the biggest issue is after someone files a complaint, you have 1 year for that complaint to be resolved and completed. So say, for example, an officer has sustained finding, they would have to be disciplined within that 1 year mark. So that that timeline, among other pieces of it, that dictates how we can do our investigations and how we can make our disciplinary recommendations. So I think that's something that will definitely need to be part of our onboarding process. But yeah, I think, are there any other questions or comments on that?
The Bill of Rights, is that in? Oh wait, this is the POBAR. Never mind. There's another thing that related to law enforcement that we abide by. Am I making things up?
I mean, POBAR is really the biggest one.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, aside from like all the various state statutes and things like that. The other thing I was thinking that we probably, there's nothing I said just a minute ago I was thinking we needed to add, and now I spaced out on it. Oh well, I think this is good enough for now. And then what we can do, unless anyone has any last changes you'd like to make on this, I think we can propose that on one of our meetings in January that we can present this to the full commission as what our onboarding process would look like.
There's still like the objective and purpose isn't associated with every single thing yet. I didn't add that part.
Okay.
So that still needs to be done. And I think, like the questions and comments and like some columns can probably be deleted and it can be cleaned up before. But
Yeah.
we can do that between now and when the meeting happens.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
And then Yasmin, I just wanted to say that the idea of this document is what training sessions need to be held, I mean, and some of these things will all be done in the same session. Like we don't need one meeting for the oath of office, obviously, things like that. That, doing one pagers and the collecting the bios and all of that, I think is more like a logistical thing that staff does. But let me know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and I actually think the top, like if you scroll up, a lot of the like laptop stuff, the confidentiality, the better impact, like all of that can be onboarded in the office. It doesn't have to be in a meeting. If it's like a few commissioners, I think this comes to a full meeting when we're replacing half of the commission. That's like
Right.
the difference.
That makes sense.
So the other thing I was starting to talk about, and so I lost my train of thought, it was the state legislation. So on that, I'm thinking things like disclosure of cases. So for example, 1421, which basically, well, there's several different laws and there's more all the time, but it's what cases of ours can be put up on our website and made public. And that includes like, so for example, if you have an officer involved shooting and there's discipline, what was the discipline? So I think those pieces are important as well. Say disclosure.
I didn't know about that.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's like Senate Bill 2. I think 1421 was, I believe, an assembly bill, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's, and I can even send it to you. There's a whole bunch, but what we've tried to do as a commission is we've tried to work with the police department, because what they've been doing is they just release stuff, and we're trying to we're trying to coordinate that. So if they release a case on their side, we want to make sure we're releasing it on our side at the same time, or at least as close as possible to each other. But that was the only other thing I was thinking that we should add in there, because I think that's an important part too, because especially when the public wants to know, especially when it comes to things like discipline, when they want to know, what happened to Officer Smith in this, in custody death, or an officer involved shooting, or whatever, or use of force. I think it's important for the commissioners to know what we can and cannot share. And part of that's POBAR, but also state legislation has changed that. And that's really kind of the last 2 to 4 years, I would say. But other than that, I think we have a pretty good setup for onboarding.
Wait, sorry, on the photo situation, and this is something to this day I haven't figured out how to do. We do need a group photo as a commission. And that would have to be in a meeting, because we wouldn't be able to bring in the commission as a whole. So maybe just naming that, and the logistical piece could be the bios and photo. That's more logistics, you don't have to put in, but the group photo would be helpful.
Maybe we, oh, there you go. I was gonna say, maybe we create a little section that just has like high level logistics. Okay. Well, I think it sounds like we're all pretty much in agreement on this. So if you guys feel comfortable doing so, I will let the chair and the staff know that we would like to present this to the commission sometime in January. And then we can make some changes to this just to finalize it. And I think to Darlene's point is we can take out a couple columns to kind of clean it up and make it a little bit clearer, I think. But I think this is a pretty good document. So Darlene deserves all the credit for pulling this together and organizing it as she is. She's done an amazing job, and I think we have something that we can be proud to give to the commission.
Yep, did a great job. Looks good.
Yeah, really good. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, I know I thought we were saying that in our hour we'd be able to get through more than one, but we didn't. We always get a little, well, at least I do. I get a little verbose. So I think what we'll just do is our next meeting, we can basically do the case review one. And then I did want to ask, with the holidays coming up, do you guys want to, and let me look at the calendar real quick. Do you guys, I mean, obviously, Christmas Day, the 25th, which is a Monday, obviously we don't want to meet then. But I'm thinking, do you guys still want to meet next Monday, the 18th? And then we'll take the 25th and the 1st off, and then we'll meet the week after that. Does that sound good to everybody?
Just flag in January 15th will also be off.
Oh, right, yes. Yes. Got it. All right, so we'll have a couple more meetings, but yeah, not too many. Okay, I will send out, actually, I'll have to look. I don't know. I probably can't delete those 2 meetings because I don't think I was the one that set up the meeting.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get rid of.
Actually, it should have ended, but I'll figure it out. I'll actually remove it from the calendars.
When is our business meeting in January? January 5th? Or I'm sorry, January 2nd? I'll look it up.
If we're sticking with the first Wednesday, it's gonna be January 3rd, but I
Third.
don't know if that's gonna happen yet.
Okay.
And what do you need from the bios? Just like maybe one paragraph or just a real quick, like,
Yeah, if you
bio.
wanna, there's examples already posted on the website,
I'm just
and
gonna pull it up and I can share it on the screen just so you can see it.
I'm gonna stop sharing video recording.
Okay.